Henry Ong, President of SIMCC. Many people have asked me, why did I decide to fund $2 million in scholarships to SIMCC and Scholastic Trust Singapore? Reflecting on it very deeply for many years, it's probably due to my upbringing. So I'm going to tell you a story. So my story starts from my father. My father was born in 1924. He was a teacher during World War II, and during the Japanese occupation, he was a supply officer. And he was a commodity supplier, so he was supplying rice, sugar, flour to the army and built a very lucrative business in the commodities. He was a council member of the Kuluang Malay Chinese Assembly, and then by May 1960, he was elected as a State Assembly Council member in the Sri Lanang State Assembly. So as you can imagine, he was very influential. So back then in 1960, he was only 36 years old and a very successful businessman. Unfortunately, I am his first son from his third wife. Okay, so there was a time where rich men could have many wives. My family didn't enjoy the luxuries of his wealth. So I remember very traumatic years during Singapore's independence. When I was about 4 years old, that was exactly around 1963. I was locked up by my father in the toilet at 4 years old. And so that was a very traumatic time for me. And right around my growing years, my dad was already bankrupted because his business had failed, and we were thrust into Singapore all alone with my mother. And by then, she had my second sister and my third sister born in 1962. So by 1965, the British had announced that Singapore would be independent, and then over the next few years, my father had left Singapore by 1965 to start a new life in Indonesia. And so those were very traumatic years for us, because by then, politically, the British had already pulled out. So those were even more difficult years for my mom, a single mother, trying to raise 3 children all by herself. She persevered, sewing clothes for people, washing clothes for people, and yet not only bringing food to the table, but working really hard and even hiring tuition teachers for me so that I would have the guidance to do well, and I did. So by the time I was in primary 6, I was in the top class, and also after my PSLE, I was admitted to Victoria School. But behind the scenes, what had happened was that by the time I was in primary 2, all to the time I was in grade 8 or Sec 2, I had one terrible habit. I was a habitual gambler. Imagine gambling right after school from about 3 o'clock in the afternoon all the way to midnight, when my mom had to send my sister to drag me home. Another major impact in my primary school years was very active, very sporty. So from that time, basically at Sec 3, I decided to pick up Taekwondo. And then unfortunately, one of my neighbors from my housing estate saw me there, and he asked his gang to beat me up. Yeah, I was quite badly beaten up, and then decided that I would leave Momain Community Centre Club to find a new club, the YMCA Taekwondo Club, and met my master. And a year and a half later, I made up my mind to quit gambling. By the time I was in Sec 4, I was training 6 days a week in Taekwondo, and I was the school athletics captain in 1975. And then I got my black belt. In 1977, I was a school champion athlete at Victoria School. My eldest sister from the first wife's family was guiding me on what I should be doing after my A-levels. I didn't do very well. As I went into my A-levels, I failed for the first time in my life. And then I had to do a repeat. So after spending 3 months in my basic military service, I went back to school to redo my A-levels again. And unfortunately, I was not focused on my studies, being very attracted to sports, so I didn't do well. However, in the army, so I had to complete serving my 2 years and 3 months of military service, and I had a fantastic time in the military, achieved all my goals in the army, where I had 6 vocations in physical training. It shaped my life because I decided I didn't want to be a PE teacher anymore. Unfortunately, there was a tragedy in the family. My sister died in a car accident. After her death, my brother-in-law decided to fulfill her wish, and that's how I managed to have a chance to study in the US. Okay, and that was the turning point in my life. Okay, just before that, I had asked my dad. Dan started to do very well in Indonesia and came back to our family, but I never really received fatherly love and care and concern from him. I still remember to this day, I never even got one single ang pao from him. So, luckily, with the support of my brother-in-law, I made it to the US. I was admitted by a few universities, and finally I decided to take up an offer from Southern Illinois University. The host family I had been assigned when I was at Southern Illinois University was Dr. Jared Don. Guided me, influenced me, and shared with me all his educational adventures. That's where a lot of the inspiration I had came from Dr. Jared Don. He also appointed me as the Vice President of Phi Kappa Phi, honor society in the US. So one of the things I talk about and why I decided to set up as my first non-profit venture was to set up the International Junior Honor Society, giving out free memberships to students who earn scholarship points with SIMCC, what came from Dr. Jared Don. Dr. Frank Klein came into my life as my career advisor, and he guided me to where I eventually ended up with a job offer from Whirlpool Corporation. And that was another defining moment for me, where Professor Tommy Cole came into my life because I was stuck with two problems. Number one, my passport was expiring at SIU, and I had to apply for an exit permit. And during those days, there were no internet. I didn't know what to do. I never returned to Singapore since I arrived in SIU in 1982. So luckily, Professor Cole came. He was then the US ambassador from Singapore in the US, and he was at Southern Illinois University, and I approached him for help. And within 2 weeks, he managed to get me my new passport and got the exit permit for me to legally live in the US to proceed for my job. And a few months before that, I had also gotten internship with the controller's office, and that basically helped me to secure my job at Whirlpool. So from there, basically I was very lucky again. Again, many mentors at Whirlpool, and one of the things I tell all our students is, whatever you do, make sure you do your best. And that's my attitude all the way through my life, in that I would try to do everything I could to the best of my ability. So one more adventure that was very influential in my life was, during the last adventure camp of 1980, I had a batch of students join the camp, and they were very disappointed because they lost about 2 hours as they had to keep all the sailboats and canoes. And the disappointment from those students made me reflect on what my mom had done for me all these years. She sacrificed her life for the three of us, my two sisters and myself, just to bring us through school and make sure that we were well educated. But, when I was in my pre-U years and even in my secondary years, I wasn't devoting myself fully to studies. That's where a lot of my understanding and motivation of children come from, that nobody likes to fail. Okay, you hear me talk about that often. So I have been striving very hard on how we can help students to succeed. And so one of our very momentous moments in SIMCC's history is when Cheryl's birthday problem came along, and we launched CMOC in 2015. And we've been able to see dramatic results of how we've helped students overcome failure or a lack of success in mathematics, to where many of them were able to get motivated by other leading students. So that was very, very momentous. So one of my main things I want to talk about in this thing here is that, so through all those mentors that I had in my life, that's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. To set up the Scholastic Trust Singapore Foundation, where we would mentor and give back to students, so that many of you, even though you don't succeed at first, you are able then, through collaboration, working with other team members, you can succeed. So even though I'm known in Singapore, a coach to the gifted program in Singapore, coaching the P5 Super Math gifted class for many years. And I implemented many of those learnings, my life experiences into the Honor Society, into the Yala camp, so that each of you will have much better experiences, much better opportunities, helping you to bring your life forward.